Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to you again. I don't know the lyrics to that song, so I don't even know why I'm singing it. But social media, Twitter, wait, wrong platform. YouTube, I know who you are. Anyway, hi, Mel here from the Evanscape. Today, it appears that I am here to ramble about Black is King. Black is King. Okay, true confession. I have seen just about a single video from Beyonce knows his Black is King. So much of what I am about to say about it comes largely from clips I've seen on the internet, read Twitter, and also that single video, and much of what has been written about it, analyzing the visuals. First, let me say Beyonce is a great performative artist, visual artist, not so much a musician. Just kidding. Anyway, Black is King, the motherlandization of Africa. So, the Wakandization of Africa, the Zamundization of Africa, the fictional version of Africa. Yeah, Motherland Zamunda is the African kingdom from the Eddie Murphy film Coming to America, which I hear there's going to be a sequel. And Wakanda, of course, is the fictional African kingdom from Marvel's Black Panther series. This refers to the trend among the Black diaspora, chiefly of the United States, to treat Africa not as a real place, but as a kind of glorified motherland. Africa exists not as a real place, but rather as a place for them to, a creative well for many Black Westerners to dip their feet into and draw inspiration from without actually giving back to Africa or in any way contributing to Africa. So, according to the African scholar Pablo Chawki, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that properly, but according to him, motherlandization is a term I came up with. This is a quote. It's a term I came up with to refer to the process, conscious or subconscious, overt or covert, intentional or unintentional, by African Americans to romanticize and reduce Africa to a monolithic, frozen and fixed motherland that serve their views. They treat Africa as a repository for their use and consumption. And Beyonce is accused of being guilty of this practice. As it's been pointed out, and I don't know how accurate this is, that Beyonce has been to Africa less than 5 times in her lifetime. And she was there chiefly for capitalist reasons to perform. And when she performed, including once for a dictator, Gaddafi, I think, she was gone. Yet Beyonce has made an entire performative art piece in which she has motherlandized Africa. This criticism is not new to me. For years now, I've read about this practice. Often it's a response to white supremacy and white supremacy's approach to Africa as a kind of primitive, dark continent where there is nothing that can be called civilization. And the extreme response to this is the Wakandization of Africa. So what this means is that it's gone from one extreme of being treated as a primitive place to the other extreme of being treated as a place that produces kings and queens and gods. And often that version of Africa is limited to ancient Egypt and Nubia. This Wakandization version is not realistic, as the critics argue, because the descendants of African Americans, who are largely West Africans, are chiefly not descended from kings and queens and gods, but rather real people. So deifying them or, royalizing them is just as much damaging to the realities of Africa and Africa's people than as much as treating them as if they're barbarians and subhumans. One extreme, the other extreme, both are bad. and not to take away from the aesthetic beauty of what Beyonce's film has done. It's lovely to see the beauty of it, and I'm fully aware that many African artists have contributed to Beyonce's work of art, unlike, say, the Black Panther soundtrack, which was produced by and curated by Kendrick Lamar and featured next to no African artists. But as I've often argued, Wakanda or the Black Panther is a film for the African diaspora. It's a film for Black Westerners, for African Americans. It has little or nothing to do with Africa, but it, in a way, right now is very damaging to Africa because the argument, of course, the defense is that it portrays Africa as it could be, Africa as it showing Africa's potential, but it also doesn't address the reality of Africa. Of course, there's that great scene when Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan, goes to T'Challa and confronts him about the neglect of Wakanda regarding its fellow Africans. And of course, T'Challa responds, "Those are not my people," because Wakanda is very much a nationalist entity. It doesn't care about the rest of Africa necessarily. And that is a really good dichotomy to describe how Black Westerners feel about Africa, the motherland, as kind of abandoning them, allowing them to exist as a kara, which is a term that I won't claim to define, although the general definition is that of a stray cat that no longer belongs. It no longer belongs with its people. It's gone astray and won't come back, which I've been told is offensive and often used to describe Black Westerners. I know Nnedi Okorafor, the author, has written the Akata Witch series that aims to humanize, I guess, the use of that term. However, I've always treated Black Panther as an angry love letter from the African diaspora, Black Americans specifically, to the motherland. The long lost son has come home to confront his abandonment, his expulsion from his culture and his society, and to confront the parent who didn't care about him. And this is the defense I have seen for why the Black diaspora, chiefly those who are Westerners and descended from the slave trade, people who were traded during slavery, this is the defense as to why they can treat Africa whichever way they please, that they can dip into its cultures unapologetically without having to respect any of the realities of modern Africa, because they feel entitled to it. They used to belong there, and they feel as if they were abandoned, and that their angry response to this abandonment is to say, "I'm coming home to claim what is mine." This attitude, needless to say, can ruffle a lot of Africans. Spoiler alert, or disclaimer, I should say, I'm not African. I'm actually of Caribbean heritage. So I'm sort of in between African Americans and Africans who have this viewpoint where I relate to African Americans who are descended from slaves, but at the same time, I understand the African viewpoint of this is my culture and you're not part of it. Who owns Africa? Who gets to be African? And what happens when you Wakandize or Zumundize Africa it's that is treated as the real Africa, not just the potential of what Africa could be, but the real Africa. So there are people who do the Wakanda salute, which is Egyptian, ancient Egyptian, by the way, and think that is African, and it's not African. And most of these people don't actually care about the realities of Africa. Let me be clear before I end this video. I've never been a Beyonce fan, and while I was making this days ago when Black is King was fresh, I was much angrier about it. And that's partly why I haven't fully seen it, except for breaking down of the visuals that I've seen online by various people in this one particular video. I personally have always felt Beyonce was a little too contrived, a little too self-impressed, a little too insincere. She essentially put herself at the center of this narrative because it's her, sure, but at the same time, she's still a pale woman with long blonde hair who has basically relied on Africanness to glorify herself. And as I pointed out, she and her husband are on record basically saying, we give back to the Black community by being role models of capitalism. We are basically capitalists and we own things, and Black people should be inspired by us, and that's how we give back. That they brag about owning art, not because they care about the art, but because they wanted to show ownership of property. Anyway, I did try to be fair about this video. As I've said, I will give her the benefit of the doubt and say that Beyonce is sincere and that this is simply not a capitalist attempt at proving herself to be a legend, which she seems obsessed with, and that she legitimately cares. And I do appreciate that the African artists who contributed, not only have they been given exposure, but they've been paid for their work. And I will give credit where credit is due in that regard. It still doesn't make me fully comfortable. And I will say to all the people who believe that you can only learn about Africans and Africanisms through Beyonce, I will say you should probably get out there a little bit more. Don't rely on Beyonce to educate you. Beyonce is a celebrity, and no, she's not sacrosanct. She is. There is this belief that criticizing Beyonce is sacrilege, and she should be above that. She should not. And we've learned over the last few years that no one should be put on a pedestal, not even Beyonce. And again, it's a great visual piece. She's a great performance artist. She's a great visual artist. I'm not sure how actual people who make their money through performance art feels about this, but she's great in that regard. The music, not so much. And I've always accused her of using visual arts to compensate for mediocre music. I still feel that way. But that's just me. Anyway, this was just my take on the Wakandization, Zamundization, and I love saying that, and the motherlandization of Africa. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what your thoughts are on people, whether they're Black or not, who use Africa as creative inspiration, despite not maybe caring about Africans personally and not having any kind of legitimate interest, anything at all to do with Africa. Until then, mail out. Subscribe to the Evanscape. I should take a drink, no? Oh, okay.